Okay.
Yep, you're good.
Cool. So thank you guys so much for coming. This is like funny because I do online teaching all day, but I'm still nervous about this. So I'm really excited to be here, but also a little nervous. I just wanted to start in the gallery itself. So I'm sorry if it's echoey. It's empty, like most art galleries. No, just kidding. We get tons of people. So this show is more of, I hate to say the word creative process, but I wanted to show you guys the gallery because this really is less a body of work than an exploration of a process. And I've never had an experience before where I felt so compelled to come and make art in a space as when COVID hit New Mexico. So it was a Tuesday, I remember at school, that the first case hit New Mexico. I think it was March 7th or 8th, something like this. And by that Friday, school was canceled. So we have a very proactive governor, and that was it. School was canceled from 3 cases to 4 cases or something. That was it. We canceled school. So we were all sort of thrown into disarray. It happened so suddenly in our experience. So one of the ways that I felt like just coping with this and as things progressed was by making art. And the studio was actually a safe place. It was quiet. It was cool because it starts to get hot in New Mexico. And so it was a place where I came and I actually felt really compelled to make art by all the stuff that was happening. So I just wanted to show you how it's hung because, yeah, you can flip. Yeah, flip. Because a lot of these prints are really messy. They're not like, if you're a printmaker, they might like horrify you a little because they're messy, they're not neat. I bled off the edges of all the prints, which meant I didn't have a clear edge to the print in the middle of the page. They all blur right off the edge of the page. And every day I would start with an idea and then I would just go with it and see what happens. So, and that's how I tend to work anyway. So these are, I'm going to show you in detail in a few minutes, but these are the first prints I did. And I hung them, I hope you guys can hear, it's really echoing here. I've hung them incredibly simply because I wanted this show again to be about the process of making and not necessarily the product. That said, I also didn't want to spend money on framing right now. And I wanted people to be able to choose, if they chose to purchase, how they would like to present the work. So these are the first pieces, and I put them individually because that's really how they happened. And come over here, cameraman. These are, then I started to create some groups of work that were more of a series, and I'll talk about those more in a minute. Another grouping is over here. And I did frame some pieces so that people could see sort of a different presentation. 3 of these were in a show in Port Angeles, thanks to some friends, Aura, shout out, who suggested a call for entry show there. So these are some of the prints. And then this is the one I really wanted you to see because this is meant to be an installation. And this is the last series that I did, and it is hung a little bit experimentally with wires and clips, and I'll explain that more in a minute, but I wanted you to see the full effect of that one. Okay, back out, cameraman, back out. Okay, so anyway, that's just a little bit about the installation. If you are in town, stop filming my back, that's horrible. Okay, flip it. There we go. Okay, so if you are in town, I would love it if you came to the gallery to see the work in real life. That would be fantastic. So, does anyone, we're open Mondays and, I'm sorry, Fridays and Saturdays. So, okay, Jessica, go ahead with the presentation. And I'm gonna actually take a minute to put in the earphones because the sound is better. you ready, Jessica? Are you presenting?
Just 1 minute.
Okay, cool. So in my online classes, this is when I would ask if anyone had a good joke. No, we don't need jokes. Okay. Sometimes they do. They have great jokes. All right. Is it presenting? No, not yet. There we go. So I think I'm going to turn the camera off on this one.
All right, just cue me when you want to switch.
Yeah, no, go ahead, switch. I'm good. Okay. Oh, I'll cue you, yeah. Okay, so this is the first piece I made, and I'll be honest, I really don't like it, but other people have said they'd liked it, so that's great. And I started out this process by, I like to recycle many things because I love making printmaking on a low budget and creating things in unexpected ways. So this was, I took some larger collograph plates that I had, and collograph is basically a kind of a collaged plate, for those who don't know, where the textures end up receiving the ink. So I cut up some collaged plates to sort of these strange organic, perhaps virus-shaped forms and shapes. So, and then I was sort of thinking about this epicenter. This was at the beginning. So this is going to take you all through the pandemic. Yay, who wants to relive it? So, so here is the first piece I made, which I don't like, but it got me going. So this is, again, a process. All of these prints bleed off the page. They're really messy, and they are an exploration. So this is called Epicenter. And I use collograph, etching, dry point etching, and trace monotype, as well as monotype techniques in most of these prints. Okay, next. Okay. Oh, my computer's being, there we go. Okay, so this is the second piece. And again, I was really excited about being messy and just coming to the studio to present, and I mean to work and to sort of process through my ideas. This one has some collograph. I also started throwing in some old plates that I have. I love to recycle materials, and so you might see things that I've had elements of in past years in these prints. So this is, again, just being messy, a lot of trace monotype, and a lot about connections. And at the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone was thinking, oh, who have I seen? And still now today, who have I seen and who maybe had COVID, and all these connections that start happening when you start to think about it. So this, I don't even remember what, there we go, oversight, yes. This is sort of who's checking who and who's in charge. No one, apparently. So next slide. Again, this is playing with these sort of collograph shapes. I was inking them with several colors, overlapping them, working with transparencies, and playing a little bit with all the different ideas of the connections and marking the spot where things happen, and so on. So I don't know if I like this one, but I hope you guys do. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is when we started doing like Google Meets. So this is kind of like Google and Zoom meeting the virus in my brain. So all of this time, I was just sort of, you know, we all were inundated with so many different graphs and charts and ideas, and it was quite overwhelming. So it was really cathartic to come in and just sort of see what happened every day. So I would start with an idea and then see what happens. So in my mind, these are sort of little viruses, but they're also people, you know, in little circles of Google Meets or Zoom, especially Google Meets, everyone's a little circle. So this was sort of who's connected to who, and who do you know, and how are we connected? And is that good? Is that bad? Are we connected because we're friends? Are we connected because we're giving each other COVID? I mean, so this was a little exploration of that. Go ahead to the next one. And this also is, and you can see I was really into the mark making and the sort of free, like the connections, the arrows and diagrams, because we were all being inundated by diagrams and charts and all these facts all the time. So next one. Yeah, this one I actually literally called zooming because I was in the middle of so many Zooms and Google Meets, and I wanted to start off with a grid, but then I thought it would be cool to sort of blend the idea, you know, all the maps that we're seeing, where the more COVID cases there are, the bigger the circle. And so this Zoom call kind of became the same thing, like whoever was talking the most became the biggest circle. And so this piece actually has some dry point in it, some photo, and then a lot of monotype and collagraph as well. Next one. Thanks, Jessie. Jessie says she loves this. That's awesome. This was a larger one, and I threw in a different plate here that I've had for years that I love, which is these vectors, which always seem to kind of connotate science and connection. So this one was called Scattering, and to me, in my mind, this is all visual representations of virus and moving and people and connections. So all these orange and red spots in the bottom are sort of moving along, moving here, moving there, and affecting us all. Next one. Okay, and then also this is called scattering, I think, no, infiltration, sorry, the last one was scattering. And that idea of the virus getting somewhere, because this was a time where, you know, it would be in New York or it would be somewhere, and then suddenly it would go somewhere else. And so I wanted to kind of create a division. And here's a shout out to my dad, who at this time sent me a neighbor's charts that he had made. A very scientific neighbor who had all these charts of projections and all this. So I didn't actually use the images of the charts, but in the etching, the dry point etching on the top, there's all these curves and waves and X's that sort of were inspired by those charts. So, okay, next one. And this one's really different. I used some old plates I had, some old photo plates with morphous imagery and time, the word time, and just sort of this idea that, oh, it's just a matter of time before we get through this. And there were some experiments before this piece that really failed. They were the only ones that I really didn't like and include. I mostly included everything I made during this time, but those ones didn't work, but they led to some other things. So this was a transition piece, and the gray sort of shadowy part of that really came out in the next series that you'll see. So I kind of reused some old pieces, mixing in some of the collagraph pieces, the sort of virus feel in the next series that you'll see. So that's the end of the first series, I think. Go ahead. Yeah, so this, that last piece led to this, which was the Lay of the Land series. And I was looking at an old print that to me really evoked a map. And I wanted to create sort of this idea of these aerial maps, then overlaid with the spread of the virus and all these counting and charts. So these to me are very, I wanted to make them pretty too. So there's the irony in this whole thing, is that in all of this, I wanted to create something that was aesthetically attractive and pretty, as I explored all these feelings and imagery that was, totally just infiltrating my entire head. So this is a series, we can go through it. This is Lay of the Land. And the grid, the funny thing about doing a show like this is that these are small, these are 8x8, so they're pretty intimate. And when you do a slideshow, it's hard to get a size sort of feeling for the size. So the orangey pinky grid below is actually cities. Those are images of the city spreads. And so in this series, the red dots are sort of the virus creeping along, and then the gray is sort of this miasma or this sickness. But I also wanted to make it kind of have bright spots and be beautiful at the same time. So you can keep going, yeah. And then again in there is some of the charts and the graphs and the counting. The sort of red pattern there is actually from a former show, a previous show that I did, but the counting aspect of it and sort of the marking really played well into this series. So you can go to the next one. And I did these are a mixture of many different techniques. So there's photogravure, so photo plates. There's lots of, I use tons of orange and avocado bags, all these kind of bags. So a lot of the textures you're gonna see there are from these bags, which I was playing with. I would work with series all at once. So I'd be working on 4 or 5 or 6 pieces at once and playing back and forth with things that were left on the plates and then reapplying them. So go ahead, Jessica, next one. Yeah, so you can see, like you can definitely see an orange bag on this one. And then I use stencils to create sort of the different dots of the virus and so forth. Next one. So they're often kind of messy. There's things I maybe would have cleaned up, but I just didn't want to touch them after I felt they were done. They were just done. Okay, so that series led to this series, and this was specifically when New York was going crazy and New York was just in the news, and so much was happening and it was so chaotic and so beautiful, the response of all the people. So this is a series, you can go through them. I've grouped them together because I really want it to be, in my mind, it's like a whole series of a city, a very horizontal series. But, and I used colograph plates. I used a lot of other older plates to create sort of the feeling of chaos and counting of numbers and the virus spreading and sort of a landscape as well. And then in this last one, you're going to see I sort of started this little target, and it sort of gave me an idea. I didn't want to like copy target, but anyway, you'll see. So there we go. So this was a different series that came out of all the others, and you'll see some, I just lost one of my Zooms, but that's okay. Can you guys still see me? Jessica, are we good? Okay, thanks. So this series I grouped together, and this is, I love this series. I started this out with trace monotype actually. So underneath these, the darker areas were started with trace monotype. And then I built up and really playing with transparencies and layers. And these are called interior track. To me, they felt the medical journals and all the medical ideas that we were having combined with sort of this idea of maps that had spreading, you know, balloons of virus and contagion and all this. So these are some of my favorites because I was really playing with depth and reaching inside on these ones. Cool, next one. Okay, so last one, this is a series, it was really different for me. This is how it's hung, and I'll show you individual ones, but it's hung with wires and crisscrossing. I had some skeptics who thought that couldn't be done, but but it was what I wanted because I wanted the feeling of connections. And so this is a series called On the Front Lines, and I haven't worked figuratively at all in many years, but we were seeing so many different images of people on the streets protesting after George Floyd's death and with all the protests for racial justice that and Black Lives Matter, that I just was compelled to sort of work with people. And so this is reflecting who's behind people, who's influenced people, your parents, your sister, your brother, your former self, your future self. And so playing a lot with the juxtapositions and layers, and then the virus is still there as well, because this was all part of the whole virus. So this is really sort of a exploration of humans within the virus and all the intensity of this time. And after that, that was it. School started again, and I felt like this show was done. So that's that.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
I'll ask a question or a comment. I just noticed that,
hi, Jessie.
hi. Oh, I did. Sorry.
Oh,
It's okay. Come here, come here.
It's not a proper Zoom call without a pet.
I just noticed that a lot of the shapes were wait, come here. Were more organic kind of feeling, a lot of more circular round shapes and stuff than what I've seen in your work before. I'll turn this off now. I just wondered if that was something that you have also noticed in that process of just sort of going in and letting stuff happen, or if...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it really was a process of seeing what came out. So yeah, and I think because there was so much, sort of images of viruses and all this stuff. So yeah, I would definitely say I wanted to emphasize the organic. And then I also love sort of equating shapes with a relationship. So like if there's two big shapes over here and a little one here, maybe they're bullying it, or maybe it's escaping, or, so yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Jessie. Yes.
You're welcome.
Oh, yay. Ted's watching from Colorado. Awesome. Does anyone else have questions?
I could keep talking.
I have a question. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Aura.
Hey, congratulations. So my first question is a little technical. First, I just want to say I just can't even, like, the amount of work you did during this time is like very expressive in itself, that like you just had this need and desire, and just the way that you took all the chaos and the overwhelm and went in there and played around with it is so inspiring. So I just want to say that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and I do have a technical question about the printmaking, but I just also want to say a couple things, like this work is so strong because I think it holds a lot of like what I've heard other people's experience of COVID, is that it's like all this destruction and all this grief, but it also has all this kind of like fertile hope in it, and sort of like it looks like big fruits and kind of celestial, and like all this kind of inspiring, like, is everything going to change kind of feeling, which has also held a lot of hope through this time, I think. So
Right.
I just want to say your work is like so expressive of that, and it's so touching. But my technical question, I was wondering, especially in the first prints, because you said you used etching and collagraph. And I was wondering if the etching, I was like writing down notes to ask this in the right way, but I was wondering, the round forms in the front, are they the etched plates, or are those the collagraph that you used more?
So the ones that are more like virus, that are sort of bold, that's the collagraph. And then the etching, I love using cheap materials. So the, that sounds bad, but it's either milk carton or other shiny surface line dry point etching. So they're very spontaneous. And so all the line work is more either etching or trace monotype, but the bolder forms were collagraph, which were made by using hot glue and other materials, carborundum filings, to create the shapes that are bolder, sort of more like the virus shapes.
Yeah, they look, it looks almost three-dimensional. They're kind of
Yeah.
almost copying of the surface. And then sometimes they're really beautiful because like light is almost shining through them. And it almost looks like you went into the ink while it was still wet and drew into it even after printing the collagraph. So I don't know, they're just really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, I did
yeah.
do lots of weird things. I don't even know everything that I
Yeah,
did,
and I
but
wanted to, I also wanted to say, you kept saying, oh, this was such a messy process, but your compositions look very kind of like thought out, and they're very strong and bold, and they don't look chaotic, the actual composition. But I guess the process was, so that's great.
well, that's great. Thanks, because I always
Thank
struggle
you.
with, like, I love to get super detailed. So trying to pull back out and create a composition is actually a challenge. So that's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Jess. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Aura. What cool comments. Those are awesome.
Can I just sneak something in quickly?
Yes, please, Dad.
Hi, Jess. Hello, everybody. I mean, I've grown up with Jessica's artwork. I've been involved with a number of her shows. And I just want to say I'm blown away by this. This is really just incredible, the depth of thought and feeling in all of these, and then the artwork itself, the technical side of it. It's just wonderful. And I have to say just something really quickly. I did not plan it this way, but right behind me here, and honestly, I did not plan this. This is a very early drawing of Jessica's of a crowd of people at an airport or something. Some of the people are upside down. They all look like penguins. Anyway, very early artwork. So anyway, Jessica, this is a great show, really.
Thank you, Dad. That's so great. Yeah. And thank you guys for all the comments in chat. Does anyone else have a question? Or I probably already talked plenty.
Where's the, okay. Jess, this is your mother, watching with Tom. Can you repeat when the gallery's going to be open, and are things available for purchase and all? I think this is fabulous. I hope it gets lots of publicity.
Oh, we're trying. So thanks, Mom. Yeah, so we're open every Friday and Saturday right now from 10 to 6. And for local people, I'm going to have a private opening because we don't want to do a big public thing. So we'll have a private thing where we're outside and then come in small groups. It is all for purchase online. So if you looked us up at both my work and Terry's work, Terry, I want to do an exchange, by the way. So it's at remarkprintshop.com. So yeah, all of the work is for sale online and in person as well. And it's also would be great to have you guys come see the work and just come somewhere that's safe and different than your house.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful exhibit. I particularly like the urban scenes. I think those are they're a departure for you because you don't generally do so many urban scenes, and they're very effective. Very
cool, great, thanks. Yeah, I don't even know what I think anymore, but I really felt like this was maybe one of the first times in my whole life, although I've made art forever, that it just was like a compulsion and it just came out and then it was done. And I actually had great advice from a fellow printmaker, Pam, who there were a few pieces that didn't feel quite finished. And I was like, I guess I could go back in and finish them. And she's like, or not, just don't include them. Who wants to go back? It's done. And she was totally right. So they're not in the show.
That's
because I didn't want to. Thanks.
So I've put in the chat, I've put the links to both online galleries where you can buy the work directly, as well as our email address if you'd like to come at a time that's different from our opening hours. If you want to come during our opening hours, just come. Bring your mask and your friends, but less than 5. And otherwise, you can email us and we can make an appointment if you'd like to come at a different time.
And and I'd be happy, and I'm sure Terry would too, if there's friends out there who want to come to meet you at a time. That would be wonderful. Yeah. So.
Any questions for either of our fantastic artists? Well, thank you guys for showing up tonight. It's really exciting. And we're so glad you guys were able to join us.
Yeah, totally. Thank you guys. This is the found part of COVID, the found connections. I never even said my title. So the lost is all the things we've lost, but then the found is these new ways that we're connecting and doing things. So
Oh, good.
yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Oh.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
We'll have a recording of this up on our YouTube channel shortly. Well, not today, but soon enough.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Brava, Jess.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks for showing up. You're awesome.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thanks, Will. You guys are awesome. I miss you.
Miss you too.
Yeah.